Evening and welcome to the regular town council meeting of the town of Garner for March 3rd, 2026. And you know it's a beautiful evening in Garner, and you know Sunday is going to be an hour later when it's light, and on the 20th it'll officially be springtime, and it's going to start feeling like spring this weekend. That's an official proclamation from snur to groundhog. We're good there. Welcome here. So we will start with a council roll call by our town clerk.
Okay, Mayor Gupton.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dellinger.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember Singleton.
Here.
Councilmember Stallings.
Here.
And Councilmember Vance.
Here.
And if you will join me, please rise if you can for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. We have a special guest to do the invocation this evening, and I'm not going to tell you who it is until I read his the motto on his coffee cup that he gave me some time ago. You may recognize him when you hear this description. It's like, call me pastor because hardcore devil stomping ninja isn't an official job title. Our good friend, Pastor Wolfgang, if you would please lead us in an invocation this evening.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening to you all. I'm Pastor Wolfgang from Lord of Life Lutheran Church here in beautiful Garner, and all are welcome, no exception at our church. I wanted to share with you before I pray a quick quote. I think it's a very helpful quote on the purpose and necessity of government that comes from Martin Luther, who perhaps you know kicked off the Protestant Reformation 500 plus years ago and ended up founding the Lutheran Church. This comes from his treatise entitled Temporal Authority, to What Extent It Should Be Obeyed, from 1523. Here's the quote. If there were no law or government, then, seeing that all the world is evil, and that scarcely one human being in 1,000 is a true Christian, people would devour each other, and no one would be able to support their spouse and children, feed themselves, and serve God. Well, Luther certainly wasn't one to mince words, right? Today's election day, so prayers for our town council members and other government officials are especially appropriate. So let us pray. Gracious God, we lift up those in positions of authority across all levels of government. We ask that you grant them a spirit of wisdom and discernment so that they make decisions that promote the common good. Especially we pray for our mayor and members of the Garner Town Council, that they may receive honest encouragement that helps them lead with humility and integrity for the benefit of all citizens. Lord, we pray that you would protect our leaders from the temptations of pride, corruption, and selfish ambition. Soften their hearts to hear and understand the needs of the most vulnerable in our community. May they govern with justice and righteousness, seeking to defend the needy and uphold the laws with a pure conscience. On this election day, we ask for your intervention to help us break down barriers built by political strife and ideological division. Guide our leaders to work together in a spirit of cooperation and respect, focusing on the common good rather than on personal agendas. May their leadership result in a quiet and peaceful life for all people. This and all else you see we need, we ask in your name, Holy One, and the people of God said, Amen. Amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor Wolfgang. Always a super job. That brings us to item B on our agenda tonight, which is petitions and comments. And do we have someone signed up to speak?
Yes, sir, we have two individuals.
Okay, well, I will read the disclaimer that we always read here at petitions and comments. This portion of the meeting is to receive comments from the public on items not included in this agenda regarding matters germane to town policies or business or subjects within the town council's real or apparent jurisdiction. Individuals or group spokespersons must sign up with the town clerk prior to the start of the meeting. The council is interested in hearing your concerns, but will not take action or deliberate on subject matter brought up during the petitions and comment segments. Topics requiring further investigation will be referred to the appropriate town officials or staff and may be scheduled for a future agenda. So who is the first person to speak?
Mr. Pierce.
Mr. Pierce, if you would come to the podium and introduce yourself, name and address, sir.
I'm Ricky Pierce. I live at 1810 Van Dorn Springs Road here in Garner. I'm here again tonight to do what seems to be bad, and that's air some dirty laundry that this board has. Put this picture up here. It reminds me why I'm here tonight. It's to air this dirty laundry. This is politics at its worst. Teamwork. I call this team Singleton, Stallings, and Dellinger. Only thing missing here is Mr. Dellinger and the victory kiss. I reckon you were a little late getting to the party. But anyway, I remember as a kid listening to stories. My dad would be hanging around with the guys, and there were stories always told. There's the dog and bear story. The dog story is they talk about someone would come up and they'd say, well, you know, when you run the old hound dog home and he runs up on his porch, he's getting ready to bite you. The other story is the bear. Don't poke the sleeping bear, because when you do, he's going to be mad as hell. Well, I'm the dog and I'm the bear, and you all know because I'm here. This is the fourth time. Looks like it's going to take me through probably spring and early summer to get said what needs to be said. I'm not here to attack anybody. I'm just here to expose to the people that are listening, to the people that are here, the people that come here to do business, what goes on in our town, the dirty politics. Now, we've got someone here that is an outsider. Sorry, Mr. Towns, you're an outsider. You won't ever be Garner. But what you are is you're a plant. You're here because the Democratic Party wanted you here, and if you think that other people haven't figured that out yet, you're wrong. Well, one day, the party's going to call their chips in, and you three guys are going to pay. Comrade Ross was here 2 weeks ago talking about ICE. Setting the stage for Sanctuary City like they're already doing in Wilson. Well, I'm going to tell you, it will not work here. You can tell that to your party. These numbers look familiar, Mr. Stallings. 696, 312. If I put Mr. Broadway's name up there, would that refresh you? I think that's how you lost in your election in your hometown. Up down here in Garner, we call that a country butt whipping. What did the people of your hometown know about you that the people of Garner didn't? Credentials? Oh, you got credentials. I understand you got a master's degree. I pulled you up on my truth finders until your name suddenly disappeared. I know how that happened too. Political science, is that correct? 37 years old. Can't afford to buy a house in Garner, North Carolina. Do you know how much soil you own in Wake County? 3:30 this morning, this is what I pulled up on the Wake County records. You don't own a square foot of soil in Wake County. You want to sit on this board and make rulings that affect every citizen in here. That is the height of hypocrisy. You say you come here and you smile all you want to. You could say you come here with transparency. You came here in a cloud of controversy. We had a gentleman running, other than Mr. Matthews and Mr. Vance. How many of you ever put your life on the line for the town of Garner? None. None. Well, it's getting close. I hadn't said what I've got to say. Didn't have a chance. Get a little bit emotional, get a little bit fired up. But I'll be back. Still waiting for the phone call, Mr. Dellinger. Still waiting for the phone call. Still waiting for the apology for your disrespect to our dead. And Gray, if you had written me the letter I wrote you, we'd have had to have a face-to-face conversation about it.
Time's up, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
I hate to leave, but I'm hosting a dinner like I do every first Tuesday, but this requires me to be here.
Thank you. Our next speaker,
Katie Cardenas.
yes, Ms. Cardenas, if you would approach the podium, introduce yourself, name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Katie Cardenas, 1609 South Wade Avenue, Garner, North Carolina, 27529. Okay. Using my seconds for my address, I have to get a shorter address. Good evening. I come to you with a story of a person who's asked that I not identify them publicly, but who would like their story to be heard. 61 years from homeowner to homeless. Born at Rex Hospital in the 1960s, he said, I've spent 61 years calling Garner home. I watched Heather Hills be built when White Oak was still a dirt road. I worked 45 years in retail grocery, starting at the Winn-Dixie right here in town. My family owned 2 homes in Garner. The community was my life. Everything changed when I lost my mother. I was her sole caregiver until the day she died. After losing her, I was overcome by grief, but also by the responsibilities of taking care of 2 homes. The town of Garner, the place I'd paid taxes in for decades, turned into an adversary. The first big challenge was an electric bill in the thousands from the second house where I thought the power had been cut off. It was too much for Garner Area Ministries to help me with, and having given up everything to take care of my mom, I could not pay. I tried to take in roommates, but they could not help enough, and soon the power was cut off. Another challenge was due to an injury that put me in a wheelchair. Because I couldn't mow my grass, I was cited and charged. Bills accumulated. I eventually had no power or water. I tried the shelters, but it caused more health issues. Compounding the grief of losing my mom, I now had a partial amputation of my foot. I returned to my own property for a roof and a locked door. The response, I was arrested for trespassing on my own land. Despite a judge dismissing the charges, the police told me the judge doesn't run Garner. They eventually busted my door down with guns drawn, charging me with breaking and entering my own home. I was forced to sell at a great loss because the town promised to arrest me every time I stepped on my own grass. My first night homeless was spent in a cardboard box at Walmart. So in 90 days, in 90 days, he can finally start collecting Social Security. He says, I am determined to get back on my feet, but I will never forget how quickly a lifetime of roots in Garner can be uprooted by a system that chooses citations over compassion. Katie, in my advocacy work that I've dedicated myself to for at least the last 6 years focused on this, I've earned the trust and carried the stories of many dear members of our community. You all know that I don't stand still. Next Friday evening, Lord of Life Lutheran Church has generously agreed to allow me to host a listening session, inviting town council members from across Wake County to learn from the experts about affordable housing strategies that work. Included in the lineup are leaders from Wake County Affordable Housing and Community Revitalization, the Faith Initiative at Southern Urbanism, NC Housing Finance Agency, HFA, DHIC, Raleigh Area Land Trust, Raleigh Housing and Neighborhoods, and a voice of lived experience from our community. I'm grateful for those of you who have confirmed your participation and eager to see the progress our residents are longing for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And that takes us along to item C on our agenda this evening, which is the adoption of the agenda. I think council members have had a chance to look this over, and unless there's some discussion, I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move. Second.
Moved by Mr. Stallings and second by Mr. Matthews. If no discussion, I will ask for a voice vote. All those in favor of adoption of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. And that brings us around to item D, which is a presentation from about our investments. I'm going to call on our finance director, Mr. David Beck, for an introduction and setting up the situation, sir.
So tonight we have Ms. Karen Magnus with PFM Investment Advisors here to make an annual report to Town Council. So the town works closely with PFM. They've been a partner of ours for many years now. They help guide the town with their idle dollars and investing those wisely and generating a return for the town on those dollars. Karen and I review everything at least on a quarterly basis. I obviously get monthly statements and reports as well, but she and I go over the portfolio every quarter. And once a year, we like to take the opportunity to also do that same type of review with council, which we will do tonight. So Karen has a presentation she'll go through, which kind of looks at market conditions as well as specifics to the town's investment portfolio. I will say the presentation was for the quarter that ended December 31st, so quite a bit has changed in the world since then. But we did want to kind of bring you up to speed with where things stand with the town's investments that PFM helps us manage. And with that, I will turn it over to Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you, David, and good evening, everyone. Again, Karen Magnus. I am an employee of PFM Asset Management, which is a division of U.S. Bancorp Asset Management. PFM Asset Management has been serving public entities for over 40 years and continues to do so. To David's point, things in the market have changed since December 31st, geopolitically, for example. But what hasn't changed is PFM's approach as a fiduciary to managing public funds, with a focus on safety and then liquidity and then yield. And so I'm going to start, David, going to slide 3, current market themes. Some of the data in this slide has changed, but the themes have not, and continue through just this week. On the second bullet, where the Fed lowered the target rate by 50 basis points in the fourth quarter, at its meeting in January, it continued to hold rates steady at 3.5, with a target between 3.5 and 3.75%. The one thing that is updated, the Fed's December dot plot indicated a 25 basis point cut in 2026 and 2027. Since the end of the year, that indication for rate cuts has moved to 2 in 2026, but we don't anticipate it being before July of this year. And we'll go to the next slide. Again, moving us forward on the consumer price index, couple of changes from what we saw in December, where the CPI is indicated as 2.7. Most recently, as of the end of January, it was 2.4. So inflation kind of moving more in line with the Fed's target. And then the core CPI was 2.5. So it's in line with where it was at the end of the year, but inching slightly, ever so slightly, toward the Fed's target of 2%. One of the themes that is going to be kind of controlling the commentary and PFM's approach is a focus on what we anticipate the Fed will do. And it does continue to be data dependent. And then we'll go to the next slide, please, David. So again, moving forward with an update on the monthly change in non-farm payrolls. We do have data for January of 2026. There was an increase of 130,000 jobs, primarily in the healthcare and education. So that's continued to lead where the jobs are. We're continuing to see unemployment in line with where it was at the end of the year. So again, moving forward to the end of January, it notched down from 4.4% to 4.3%. We continue to see the Fed focusing on its dual mandate of inflation and then also full employment. And we also see firms where they're not doing a lot of hiring, they're also not having a lot of layoffs and stuff. So some resiliency there. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with, going on to the next slide, please, David, with something called the K-shaped economy, which is really just an indication of just like kind of describes the discrepancy, I guess, between the top earners and then the lower earning folks. And so basically what this is indicating is that the U.S. consumer continues to be resilient, but where we're seeing that resiliency is in higher wage earners. And so so it's resilient. I guess the question that Fed Chair had at the end of the year and is still out there is how sustainable is that, where your top earners are kind of carrying the economy. We'll go on to the next slide, please, David. And then I'm going through this at a pretty good clip, but if you have questions as we go along, please just ask me to pause and I'll take your questions. Excuse me. So one of the things as PFM is looking at is negative or factors that are impacting the economic outlook from a negative perspective, a positive perspective, and then neutral. So in the negative perspective, we're seeing rising student loan delinquencies, planned federal spending cuts, at least I guess as it applies to social safety net, and then increased retail credit card balances. On the positive side is the easing Fed policy, again, the potential for rates to continue to come down near the end of the year, resilient consumer spending, and then also corporate fundamentals. So between the resilient consumer and then corporate fundamentals continue to be positive in this environment. With respect to tariffs within the neutral column, I'm sure you all heard the Supreme Court's ruling recently that the policy under which the administration implemented tariffs was not, I guess, legal. And so we're still waiting to see some of the fallout from that and some of the potential fallouts from whether or not companies will attempt to claw back any of the tariffs that were claimed from them. One of the things in terms of tariffs or prices, to the extent that prices rose as a result of tariffs, we typically don't see prices decline that way. So I'm going to speed up just a little bit. Looking at slide 8, please, David. Inflation is projected to go lower over the next couple of years. The Fed fund rate is expected to also decline, as we discussed, later this year and into 2027. Unemployment kind of in line with where it is, but we expect that to decrease. And then the change in real GDP is expected to tap down a little bit lower over the year. If we go to the next slide, please, David, slide 9, the Fed dot plot. And so just to bring all of us forward, the Fed dot plot, each dot represents each Fed voting member's idea of where they would have rates, the Fed fund target rate be. And so for 2025, you can see that they're all kind of bunched together as we move out. Their, I guess, opinions start to vary a little bit more. And then we also know that Jerome Chair is expected to retire, or his chairmanship will be coming to an end later this spring. And then again, the reminder that in 2026, as of the end of December, they were anticipating 1 cut, and that has gone to two cuts this year. I'm going to fast forward a little bit so we can look at your portfolio, because that is what we're here to talk about. But if you have any questions on the economic update, I'm happy to address those separately with David. So if we go to slide 14, please, David. As of the end of December, the portfolio's value was just under $10.7 million. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to serve the town of Garner with respect to your idle funds, and then bring our fiduciary expertise to bear there. As of the end of the year, 100% of your portfolio was all allocated to U.S. Treasuries. We are, I guess what we call benchmark neutral, so our duration is in line with the benchmark that your portfolio is measured against. And then we'll go to the next slide, and you can see even throughout 2025, the holdings were all in treasuries, and that could just be an indication of the portfolio manager not finding relative value in other security types, for example, federal agencies. And we'll go to the next slide, please, David. And then, so just the sector allocation for the funds, the town's total assets. And so in U.S. Treasuries, the 10.6. And then you also have money in the North Carolina investment pool, local government investment pool, which we appreciate as well. As you can see on slide 17, the portfolio was in compliance as of the end of December. Any trades that are implemented in the portfolio run through our Bloomberg AIM portfolio compliance system, and throughout the day, the portfolio is monitored for compliance. Slide 18 is just another view of the allocation. And then if we move to slide 19, we can see the performance, where I would just say like the proof is in the pudding. And so again, over all of the time periods listed out here, you can see that the portfolio, the town's portfolio, is beating its benchmark. On slide 20 just shows the interest income that you've earned through the inception of the portfolio of PFM Asset Management. And then you can see from September 22 and beyond, where the interest earnings increased significantly, and that was in line with the Fed funds increasing the target rate. And then lastly, we'll end on portfolio transactions, and which just lists the buys and then the maturities. And so there weren't any active sales that occurred in the portfolio over the last quarter, and the buys resulted from maturities and any residual cash resulting from interest payments. I'll pause there and see what questions do you all have.
See, we'll start with Mr. Vance. Questions?
Just a slight one. In the early part of your briefing, you mentioned about the market changes in December. This may be from Mr. Beck as well. So are there any risks in the market conditions that we should watch out for in the coming year?
From how your portfolio is allocated with just U.S. Treasuries, so that's considered relatively risk-free, backed by the full faith and power of the U.S. government. So from that perspective, I would say the portfolio is invested as safely as it or as risk-free as it could be. And then we're continuing to monitor, keep our eye on what the Fed does. We're seeing if you're looking at volatility in the market, whether it's the Dow or the S&P, a lot of that is driven by the potential for energy prices to increase, and that's going to be data that the Fed then also considers in terms of what they may do with the Fed fund target rate. So I don't know, David, if you would add any.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what Karen shared. Like she said, currently we're only invested in U.S. Treasuries, which are considered the safest type of investment. The portfolio manager, does look at other investment types from time to time, but right now, the increase in yield on those other investments is not worth the risk. So potentially we have all the money sitting in the safest type of investment we can right now. So other than withdrawing from the market, it's in the safest location it can be. And safety is the number one priority to make sure that we don't lose money on anything we invest in.
And I was going to go back to that. I probably had too many words, but going back to my comments at the beginning, PFM Asset Management has been servicing or serving public entities in this capacity for over 40 years, and we've seen different geopolitical conflicts occur, the Great Recession, and we've continued to put clients first in terms of our investment approach. One of the things that David mentioned, and I apologize for taking a little bit more time, but our investment team has a list of approved issuers. Each of those issuers, none of which are in the portfolio because you only hold treasuries in this portfolio, but all of those issuers go through robust vetting process. And then talking to someone on our portfolio strategies team today, there's nothing on our list of approved issuers that has exposure to what's going on in the Middle East currently. So I'm sorry for the long-winded answer.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
It is important stuff. Thanks for your attention to the details. Mr. Dellinger?
Yeah, a question for Mr. Beck. What percentage of our fund balances does this $10 million represent?
It's roughly a third or so.
And I guess my other question is, I guess my memory of our investment portfolio is short. But over the past 5 or 6 years, what have been some of the allocation changes that have been made in the portfolio to market conditions to return, to get a rate of return over just investing in treasuries?
I'll take a stab at that first, but Karen can fill in any gaps. We have been invested in things like commercial paper previously. That was probably several years ago. That was, returning a pretty fair amount for the town. We also are invested in federal agencies from time to time, so Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, those types of offerings. But it does shift, and we do have, guardrails in place with our investment policy that say we can only have a certain percentage of the total investment in a particular sector. And obviously treasuries, it can be 100%, but some of these other investments that are a little more risky, we do have guardrails in place so that we can invest the total funds in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the allocation at the present time makes sense given what's going on, but I was just kind of curious as to how it shifted over time and not all just kind of sitting at barely covering inflation. So,
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Karen, hang on.
No questions.
Mr. Singleton?
Thanks for coming again. Thanks for coming in for the update.
Absolutely. My
Mr.
pleasure.
Matthews?
Same here. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Beck, back to you.
Just appreciate it. If anyone has any questions as a follow-up, Mr. Rance?
Yeah, just have one last question.
Sure.
Is there any particular reason why 100% of this investment is placed in the treasuries?
No, so speaking with the portfolio manager, it really is the relative value that they're seeing. So that they're seeing relative to other investments that they could be making for the duration of your portfolio. So by duration, I mean, like if we go back to one of the slides, the benchmark duration is 0.88, right? So just under a year. And so as they're looking at maintaining the portfolio's duration in line with the benchmark and seeing what is available out there, the spreads, meaning if they could buy a treasury for 3.75, yielding 3.75, and then buy something with a higher risk profile for 3.76, they're just probably going to buy the treasury. So they want to be benchmark neutral, and then with then being benchmark neutral, what are the available investments that they could make in line with the investment portfolio? And then if the spread, meaning the non-treasury security, if the spread isn't worth the additional, the risk isn't worth that incremental spread, then they're likely to just stick with the treasuries. Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
Somewhat.
Okay.
Mr. Rance, it's really like Karen mentioned early on, there are three sort of guiding principles with the investment. So safety is number one, liquidity is number two, making sure that we don't have money tied up in long-term investments where we can't access that money if we need it. And then yield, or the rate of return, is the third. So it falls further down the list than safety. And so that portfolio manager is always evaluating opportunities, but if they don't see something where the higher return is worth the additional risk that the money that we're taking with the money, they're going to pass on that, and they're going to stay with the safer investment, which currently is all in treasuries.
Okay, thank you.
And that's why David is the finance director and I'm not. Thank you, David.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you, Ms. Magnus. It does take a team. It takes a group of people with their eyes on this, from our town manager on down and oversight by our council member. It's serious stuff when we're talking about tens of millions of dollars that belong to other people than us.
Absolutely.
If it was my personal thing and I wanted to bet it all on Bitcoins, that's the risk I can take. But we have a fiduciary responsibility.
Absolutely,
Number one, don't lose the money.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you very much for
Thank
the work
you.
that you do. Thank you, Mr. Beck.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And that brings us to section E of our agenda tonight, which is the consent agenda. And these are typically items that are of a more administrative nature. In fact, there's only one item on there this evening. It has to do with the bid award for the Main Street parking along the railroad, where we inherited an unexpected 39 angle parking spots. And apparently the work has been done. I believe the council has looked at the information. If that needs to be pulled off for more discussion, we can do that. If not, I will be accepting a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stallings. Second by Mr. Matthews. Is there any other discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed by nay. Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you. And there are no public hearings scheduled for this evening. It moves us to section G, which is the new and old business. And the first item is the Tier 1 conditional rezoning request related to the Rock Quarry assemblage. And our presenter tonight is our Assistant Planning Director, Aaron Joseph. If you could give us a quick update. We seem like we spent a good amount of time on this a couple weeks ago.
We sure did.
And now we're back after a continuation. If you want to bring us back up to speed, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. Good evening. Good to see you all. So I'll be brief with this and just focus on the salient details since the February 17th meeting. The case, the rezoning, Tier 1 rezoning case, Rock Quarry assemblage, was before you for a decision on the 17th. This request, just briefly, has been submitted by Daniel Smoot of Madison Holdings. They are requesting to rezone 82.94 acres from residential agricultural or rural agricultural to commercial mixed use conditional. The site is located at Rock Quarry Road and East Carner Road. This is a Tier 1 rezoning, so it does not have a site-specific master plan. Now, at the meeting on the 17th, there were concerns expressed about the written conditions and the potential for a worst case, or I would say a lowest benefit opportunity for this development to potentially develop as. So there were questions surrounding that, which led to a motion to continue the meeting to tonight to allow the applicant and the property owners to discuss one in particular condition that relates to the non-residential commitment within the site. And so since then, the applicant has modified the condition. You have that condition on the screen, and in blue is where the, brown is where the condition has changed. So they have committed to one vertical, at least one vertical mixed-use building with a minimum of 2 stories in height that will have uses such as complementary uses such as food, beverage, retail, medical, recreational, entertainment, hospitality, and residential uses within that vertical mixed-use building. And this commitment will be located within 400 feet of Quarry Road and East Garner Road. And so that is the significant change from the February 17th meeting. I won't run through the changes since the public hearing, but as the applicants received feedback from public hearing and planning commission, they did make several changes to their conditions as well. And so overall, with the analysis with our comprehensive land use plan, they have an overall strong rating of support. There was one strong non-support, but staff finds a consistency and overall finding of consistency with our Garner Forward plan. And so for you tonight is to evaluate the reasonableness of this request based upon our 6 criteria as outlined in our Unified Development Ordinance. And the request before you is to consider adopting an ordinance to approve this request.
Thank you. A lot of work has gone into this. This has been in the process for some time. We had a very detailed meeting 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
We had a little confusion or lack of certainty on some of the words. This, quite frankly, is probably the most complicated zoning issue that's come before us. It not only is it tier 1 that has a lot of vagaries and lack of the simple master plan we're used to seeing, and it's that way for a reason, so that the developer and the tenants can go with the economy. They can respond to the different market forces over the next year, 2, 5, 7, what it takes to complete this out. This gives them the groundwork. The council wants to make sure we're getting everything we want, and the developers trying their best to do that. They spent their time listening to all of us in small groups and in the council and to the staff, but it's a big, complicated project. We're all very excited about it, all very excited about the potential. We appreciate staff and our development partners' effort to get the words down that will back up the vision that we have. And it's a complicated one. So thanks for everybody's efforts so far, and we'll get questions and comments. We'll start with Mr. Matthews this time related to this.
No questions. They met what we asked, and I'm ready to move forward.
Mr. Singleton.
Yes, and since we're at this point, I'm assuming the property owners had no trouble making the changes on the condition, so the change on the condition, everyone agreed.
Okay.
I'm sorry, your question was, did all the
All the property owners
sign?
agreed,
We got-
basically, but
we
when I
got
saw
all
here,
the
everything was
signatures?
100%, because we met on the
Yes, sir.
17th, and they're dated the 19th, so everything's.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good, thank you, thank you
Yes.
for.
Well,
going
while
the
you're
extra
up there,
step.
stick around in case there's another question.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Stalin, questions, comments?
No questions.
Mr. Dellinger.
Yeah, just a comment and a question. And the comment is, I think this project highlights the relative risk to the town on these large tier 1 projects that don't create enough clarity on the fiscal impact on the town's budget. So I think we need to, as a town, do better on our process side of evaluating these large projects as they come to us so that we can better quantify their impacts on our revenue. I think the other question I have is, when you did this project and it was been in the pipeline for a year and a half or so, a year, and you all thoroughly reviewed our comprehensive plan in that process, correct? At any time were you made aware by town staff on our interest in housing affordability and affordable housing? Were you just aware of it as a part of our comprehensive plan?
We are aware of it as a component, for sure.
And were you aware of the council's affordable housing task force work that we were doing? And
I am somewhat familiar with it, yes.
And last question is, what, if any, substantive and direct contributions to our stock of affordable housing will this project make without any reference to macro supply and demand?
None.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Vance.
No questions.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. You can have a seat. You know, like I said, we spent a lot of time on this. We're shooting high. There's less detail than we have on some, but a lot more detail about what we want down on others. It's an exciting project. We're shooting for the moon, and we've never done it quite this way, and that's where we are. So that being said, if there's no further questions, I will ask if there's a motion to approve the statement of reasonableness and conditional rezoning by adopting ordinance 2026-5378.
I move that the town council accept the planning commission's written statement regarding consistency of the zoning amendment request with the adopted land use plans detailed in section 3 of the staff report as our own, and I further move that the town council adopt ordinance number 2026-5378, approving rezoning of CZ 24006 as the request is reasonable and the public interest because the subject property would be more suitable for the uses permitted by the proposed district versus the current district.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Vance and a second by Mr. Matthews. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Dellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to go on the record saying that I think the town has spent a lot of time over the past several years in terms of volunteer resource, staff resource, and time resource dedicated toward mapping out a path forward for our ability to contribute to solving portions of this affordable housing crisis that exists currently. It's disappointing to not see any elements of this in this project with over 1,000 units there. It could have been a really significant contributor to our affordable housing stock or made some other contribution. On the other flip side of that, in terms of the tier 1, I still have concerns over the forms laid out in the conditions, and that at its minimum build out, or even minimal viable build out, I will say, it is a sufficient end product for our tax base. I hope that when this project is voted on and there's a commitment, there's a voiced commitment to contributing to the community, we can reach out and engage to you on some of our affordable housing initiatives. I would love to have you partner with us on some of those. It's not an offer for it's not trying to impose a condition. I would just like to see that we have applicants and developers come into Garner who take the issue seriously enough to include it in their projects. And if they don't, they're at least serious enough to engage with us on helping create solutions for the community. That's all.
Any other comments or discussion before we call for a vote? Okay. Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote, and let's start with Mr. Vance down at this end. If you're in favor of the motion that you've made, please signify by saying aye or nay if opposed.
Aye.
Mr. Dellinger?
No.
Mr. Stallings?
Aye.
Mr. Singleton?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
So that passes by a vote of 4-1. And I understand the concern. We're meeting many goals here. The ray of sunshine that I see in this project, even though there could be some vague areas, is that we're dealing with a local developer, a local landowner out there who has many more projects and many more acres ahead of them. And I believe there's a commitment from the landowners and the development partner to aim high, to do the best we can, and continue to work for the coming decade for a key part of our town that most people didn't even realize was part of our town. So thank you for the work you've done. Congratulations on getting us through. We look forward to continuing to work with you to be the best that we can possibly be. Thank you very much. Thank you. That brings us to item number 2 under new and old business, and this concerns the Bennett North Apartments. It's a resolution authorizing affordable housing bond issuance. Our presenter tonight is our town manager, Jody Miller. Will you be standing at the podium?
I'm fine from the dais today.
Okay.
So, good evening, Mayor, members of council. This is just a refresher. Council discussed this project, and it was continued from your January 20th meeting. Attached for your continued discussion and consideration for this evening is additional information that council requested. Some information gathered by the staff is included in your agenda packet, as well as additional information by the developer, and then proposed resolution for tonight as well. So The action for tonight is adopt resolution 2687 for your consideration. My understanding is that a representative from the Wake County Housing Authority is here to answer any questions you have on the resolution for the bond issuance, as well as the development team if there are any additional questions regarding the project.
Okay, well, I will just interject an editorial note here. If the previous rock quarry assembly project was one of the most complicated ones we've ever dealt with, this is one of the most unique and confusing. It's not complicated, but it's very confusing. Just a quick recap of how this came about and why it was so confusing, at least to me. For a couple of years, Bennett North was working through the process, got a rezoning on this and some other related property and their assemblage there. And I think the first time I was actually involved, it was coming back for its SUP for 171, I think it is, housing units in a multifamily. And it passed, and they made some adjustments. It passed, it got approved, the rezoning. And then 5-6 months later, fortunately, one of our keen-eyed council members, looking at some correspondence, said, it looks like they're changing their funding on this thing. And long story short, the same exact apartment buildings that we approved are planning to be built by the applicant, by the developer. But they changed their financing in a way that they felt was to their advantage and probably to the advantage of perhaps some folks who needed some affordable housing. But when it came before it, and it didn't come before us to approve their financing any more than any other developer would come to get the council's approval for dealing with this bank or that bank or this investor. It was not that way. And actually, it wasn't even the developer who came back here. We thought it was, but really, it's the housing authority of the county of Wake who was asking for our authorization to issue these bonds. And I must go on record saying these are not the kind of bonds that we vote for and the town issues, which is just the ability to borrow money and pay it back from taxpayers' expense. These are not those kind of bonds. This is a bond that the Housing Authority of Wake County issues, and it's bought by investors, retirement funds, other things. It's not a loan that's being given. So this does not have to come to the council for approval. It comes to a council because it's another governmental entity, the Housing Authority, is asking for our authorization to issue this bond, which will help them build this particular project. Independent of that, apparently, the developer also pursues some federal tax credit tools that will help make this project more affordable to them, affordability that they can pass along to the tenants. Pretty straightforward. They don't have to get our approval to get that federal tax credit. It's a whole nother thing administered by HUD and enforced by IRS for the coming 10 to 30 years to make sure they're playing by the rules. So this is not really coming back for our approval. Hasn't come back to our approval. Did not come for a public hearing. There was never a chance. There's been some frustration from landowners and council members. There was never a chance to have some input. But hey, it's just one of those times that you don't have to approve the bank they borrow their money from. The fact that it just triggers their ability to choose to have an exemption for property tax is independent of that. It's not up to the council. These are rules made by the federal government, the state government, different agencies that just works. So it puts us in an awkward situation here, or an unusual situation, where we're discussing the Housing Authority of County of Wake. So that being said, I'm just laying the groundwork for how confusing it is. I'd be glad to accept some thoughts from other council members, and let's start with Mr. Matthews this time.
Mr. Mayor, there's a big concern. I've got 171 units out there, and two things. If it's affordable housing, the rates that they're proposing are the same as the rates right across the street all around as an average in Raleigh. So I'm not seeing nothing there, which may create housing affordability. Secondly, our police and our fire have got to go out there and take care of 171 units, and it's a big cost to that. I think we figured it's close to, what, $500,000 we would normally, you had that figure, I believe.
That you're talking the cost of services
Yes,
to be
sir.
provided to 171. It's somewhere in the $400,000 a year range, maybe as low as 200. It's a little lack of certainty, but for the town of Garner to provide basic fire, police, and public works services to 171 units is over $200,000 a year. And I guess that's what part of what hurts our feelings, not to get ahead of you, that not only will the town spend up to $200,000, will also forego the approximately $177,000 of property tax they would have paid if it had continued as a market rate project. So that's part of my personal frustration. Instead of coming close to breaking even, we'll get no tax revenue under this scenario, and we'll still spend $200,000 providing services.
So basically, the citizens of Garner has got to subsidize this and pay for this because we're not getting any revenue. Is that what we're hearing here?
I think that, in my opinion, that's safe to say. Now, also, federal taxpayers are making a contribution with the federal tax credit thing. I think the Wake County citizens and taxpayers are making a contribution by providing better than market rate financing. So there's a lot of contributions being made here. And I want to go on the record as saying that every member of this council is committed to affordable housing. We just are not sure this would have been our choice as the place or the facility to put it. Are our citizens or our residents really going to get any significant improvement here at the HUD rates versus walking across the street to the very similar project who pays their property tax, does not take an exemption? Right now, they seem to be about the same rates. Mm-hmm. That's the confusing and frustrating part to us. So, excuse me, I interrupted you.
That's quite all right. We need to get all this out on the table, and those are some of my concerns with this. You know, like I said, we're all trying to housing affordability, and we're making some great strides there, and we're going to do some good things. But from what I'm seeing, what the rents are, you might as well go across the street and rent over there. So you might even save a little bit, maybe. So, and then the revenue for the town for providing all the services. So, and bottom line, the citizens of Garner are going to have to offset that one way or the other. So that's my big concern. That's why I've got problems with this project as it's being proposed right now. Originally, it was one way, but it is now, I've got problems.
While we're expressing our opinions, let's just come on down the road. Mr. Singleton, comments, questions?
First off, y'all, I don't know if y'all realize there are about 6 or 8 apartment complexes in Garner already that do this. Y'all do know that, right? You know, there's 2 off Feather Springs, there's 1 on Timber Drive, there's 1 on right down the road from this on Highway 401 on Small Pine Drive. I think there's 8 projects in Garner that do this. So I understand the concern. We were told they were going to be market rate, and they're not market rate. That's the concern. That's what it was presented on a couple of years ago. So that's the big concern. Now, I understand that. So I also have read the attorney's legal opinion multiple times, and apparently, since the federal government, this falls under the federal government, we can deny it, but it's going to get a court order and say you cannot deny for affordable housing for people. So that's what the law says. So, you know, we have to consider that also, the Fair Housing Act. So we're between a rock and a hard place in a way, because she's told us that what the law is, and then our opinion is a little bit different than that. So I think what you're looking at on the rates is that the rates are, this is what happens on my rental property. The rates are this, and the person there pays a certain portion, and the other is subsidized by the federal government tax program. So the rate's higher, but the person who lives there is not paying as much. And the one I own, so one I own's also much older, and nowhere near as good a condition as these would be. So, but it's supplemented. They pay like $600, $629, and it's like $900 something dollars, and that is made up for through a tax program. So the rate you see would be this, but the person living there only pays this. So I don't know if that applies in this case. So I reckon the big concern is, we thought these were gonna be market rate apartments, and they're not. But also the concern is, the attorney has advised us that the Fair Housing Act says, if we deny it or we don't take action, either way, the county and or the developer can take us to court. So that's the issue there.
Thank you, Mr. Singleton. Mr. Stallings, comments, questions?
I just want to be clear what we're talking about, not ask a couple of these questions during our last meeting. We're in a very unique situation with this project. HUD's definition and what they're using for AMI is Wake County's AMI. It's Raleigh MSA, which is around $131,000. The Affordable Housing Task Force did a lot of work in defining what affordability looks like in Garner, and Garner's AMI is around $77,000. So if you look at what's being proposed at 60% AMI of Wake County's Raleigh MSA's AMI, it will be roughly around $78,000. So $78,000 would mean that they are charging, as the developer said on the dais, $1,600, which the property across the street, as I on the dais looked up on apartments.com, was $1,650. It's the same rate. It's not affordable housing that we're talking about. I want to make that clear. It's not affordable. It's market rate for Garner. So I don't really see, and this is Kelvin's opinion, the public benefit for having a tax abatement for 30 years for market rate housing. If we were going the Affordable Housing Task Force route and what they define as affordable housing, that 40 to 50%, then we would be talking about something else, but we're not even talking about that. We're talking about 60% of Raleigh MSA, which is about $78,000, which is market rate. I just can't support that.
Mr. Dellinger, comments, questions?
I have a list. I think the first one that has been problematic for the council is the process piece of this, and that the public's input and the council's input has sort of been usurped in this process through not proper or in place notifications or awareness. I think the frustration is that the council and staff and the community went through a process on the rezoning and the special use permit by which there was public notice, engagement. This is what we're approving. This is what we got our feedback. We made our decision based on that feedback. I think the one that kind of also digs at me is that during the special use permit process, one of the criteria is impact on adjacent land values. And while that assessment is not just an appraisal of property, when you change the makeup and the expectation of the use of that property, incomes drive commercial development. So if you're changing the income profile of a development, you're also changing the commercial profile of an entire area, and you're changing that. It's just true. You bring in a lower income group of housing that we already suffer from that in Garner. And I can see you snickering, and I can see it, and I'm gonna call you out on it, because we struggle here in Garner to get the high level, high quality commercial development that we want, because we don't have the incomes and housing stock in place to do it. I'm not asking you a question. This is just a reality. And the part of the special use permit is to evaluate the impact of a project on surrounding property and their interest that they may have to develop their property or live next to that property. The other is the tax exemption is the uniform concern of this council sitting up here. We have nothing against affordable housing, housing affordability, anything you want to call it. It's the tax exemption that is not necessary to build this project or get that financing. Because the town of Garner and its residents shouldn't have to pay for this development in that way. And we have to pay for the service delivery. That is just a fact. This is a net revenue losing project. It is a tax increase project for the residents of Garner. And there's not any way to tap dance around that. And the frustrating thing for the council is it's a voluntary ask for that exemption. I have a few other to piggyback on some others, but I think that tax exemption is really the thing that is the most troubling part of this, particularly when we've had years and years of tax increases and people don't want tax increases, and this project will require, in essence, a tax increase.
Thank you. We'll continue our discussion. Mr. Vance, questions, comments?
Yes, I'd like to also say that I am not against affordable housing at all. And as has been reiterated, that we were given one project 2 years ago, and then a few months ago we got something that was not presented, and the public was not allowed the opportunity to view and take consideration what is being presented to us tonight or earlier. That is part of my concern, is that public involvement piece, because I believe it's not fair to the public at large, those who have interests that are adjacent to this property, who were planning and thinking based upon what happened 2 years ago and taking steps to move forward with plans and things of that nature. To have this come in the way it did without getting that engagement is concerning to me. And again, I'm not against public housing. I'm not against affordable housing. And it's the matter in which this was done and exposure. We had a tremendous debate about this 2 years ago. I remember specifically, and the public was engaged with that as well. However, the public has not been engaged with this particular process, which is concerning. It's particularly the adjacent property owners, and that concerns me.
Okay, I think I'll take this opportunity just to reread, to keep us on task here, what we're looking at here. The Housing Authority of the County of Wake, the Wake Housing Authority, is requesting a resolution to authorize issuance of multifamily housing revenue bonds to provide financing for the construction of Bennett Apartments North, which will include 171 units. So actually, the applicant here before us is the County of Wake. Is there a representative of the Housing Authority with us here this evening? Would you like to make a statement or give us a little guidance, help us understand to us, a confusing situation that's a little bit unique? We know your heart is in the right place. You are here to help people. If you would introduce yourself.
Happy to do that. Good evening, council members, mayor. My name is Kristen Kirby. I'm with McGuire Woods in Raleigh, North Carolina. We are bond counsel to the Housing Authority of Wake County. As was mentioned, the resolution that we brought before you was a resolution specifically relating to the bond issuance. Because the project is located within the town limits of the town of Garner, state law requires that the Housing Authority come to the town for a resolution before they proceed with issuing bonds to finance this project. The Housing Authority in this type of deal is acting as a conduit bond issuer. It's not the Housing Authority's debt. It's not the Housing Authority's project. They've been asked to issue the bonds as part of the overall financing for the project. So I'm not really sure what to tell you to address your concerns on behalf of the Housing Authority. They're not really involved in the permitting, planning, approval process with the developer. The Housing Authority did previously adopt an inducement resolution saying that it was willing to issue the bonds. The Housing Authority held a public hearing about this project and about the bond issuance in December. No members of the public attended or made comments. And so just as we continued through the process, I submitted the resolution to the town, similar to what we did one other time before when there was a similar tax-exempt bond LIHTC deal for another affordable housing project, but we weren't really, I guess, the Housing Authority are not involved in the interim. So like in terms of that part of the process, I can't really speak to it. I'm happy to answer any questions or about the bonds, the financing, the process. But I think any questions related to the tax exemption, the design of the project would be better addressed to the developer, because that's not something that's mandated by the Housing Authority. Of course, as was noted, the property tax exemption is a matter of, state statute that allows for it. The Housing Authority doesn't have any skin in the game necessarily as to whether the project is exempt from property taxes. So, that's not something they would necessarily review as part of the bond issuance process.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. We're trying to learn. We're trying to be fair.
I'm happy to answer any questions about the process. I realize these aren't the types of deals that come before the council on a regular basis.
And it's certainly not the kind of deals that come before this council on a regular basis either,
Sure.
as well as your council. The one question I'll have, and then we'll start over with Mr. Vance and run this way. Have you run across anything like this in other jurisdictions, just the level of confusion or misunderstanding or whatever that we seem to be experiencing here?
I mean, these aren't done every day in every jurisdiction. So of course there's always, some explanation and overview of what is involved in one of these tax exempt bond deals with low income housing tax credits. This particular situation is unique. And I think I mentioned this at the prior meeting in the sense that most housing authorities across the state are located within a city. They're a city housing authority. And so, they have the ability to do projects anywhere in the city, and they don't have to go ask the city, is it okay? Here, we're in a unique situation where because this project is within the town of Garner, but the town of Garner does not itself have a housing authority, and that we need the county housing authority to issue the bonds, but the project's both within the jurisdiction of the county and the jurisdiction of the town. You come to the town for this approval, but perhaps after the process has gone along a little ways with the housing authority and the bonds. So I can't say I've had this exact experience, but I wouldn't necessarily have that because this is, if we're working with the Raleigh City Council, which we do frequently, we don't go to the city of Raleigh to say, there is one approval we get from the city, but we're not necessarily going to them with this exact type of resolution, if that makes sense.
Well, thank you for your patience with the uninitiated.
No,
We're just trying to understand.
completely understand. I spend much of my day explaining these types of bonds to everybody.
Well, thank you. And with that being said, I'll ask our council members again, do you have questions for our representative of the Wake Housing Authority, Mr. Vance?
I don't have questions.
Mr. Dellinger?
Just briefly and for the public's awareness, what's sort of the timeline and time frame of this cycle, and where are we in that cycle timeline-wise?
Sure. So in order to do these bonds, the developer applies to the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency for volume cap. They have completed that application process. They've been awarded the bond volume cap. So now we're moving through the rest of the approval process needed to get to closing. Like I mentioned, we've had the public hearing. We had to go to Wake County for an approval. That's been completed. This was, the next step in the process coming to the town. Prior to closing, we'll go to the Housing Authorities Board for a final approval at the point where, bond documents are in final form and ready for them to approve them being signed. And then there's typically also an approval from the North Carolina Local Government Commission. In terms of timing, it will probably, that whole set of approvals, it usually takes us 2 to 3 months to get through. Of course, we are not moving forward currently until we know if this project's going to be approved by the town, because the next steps really get the entire financing team involved, in all the lawyers involved in drafting the documents, finalizing everything, which of course involves time and expense that you can understand they may not want to move forward with quite yet.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tallons, questions?
No questions.
Mr. Singleton, questions?
HUD is what, I think Mr. Stalin said this, HUD is what's behind setting the area EMI that you use, and we use the Wake County Raleigh EMI, even though Wake County has very distinct income pockets. That's what has to be used because HUD says it has to be used, correct?
That's correct. HUD sets the rents every year, and they're determined based on the MSA. I believe in this case it's the Raleigh-Cary MSA, which is Wake, Johnston, Franklin counties. But yes, that's right. Those rents are set annually by HUD.
So is it called the Raleigh-Cary MSA?
I believe that's the name of it.
How ironic.
I
I'm not
don't.
blaming you, no, but how ironic is Raleigh and Cary when Garner and Wendell and Zebulon and Knightdale and Rolesville have all, and basically if it's Johnston County, they have different income pockets. Anyway, that has
Yeah, no, I
nothing to do
mean,
with
certainly
you.
fact check me on that because I'm going off the
That's
top
okay.
of my head.
That's
but
okay, but the HUD sets the policy.
That's correct.
Okay,
HUD sets
very
the
good.
rent, and then it's based on the amount of affordable housing units that are necessary for the project to be able to be financed with the bonds is determined by the IRS because these are federally tax exempt bonds. So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews?
Just make sure I understood you correct, because we've gone through a whole lot here. But taking Raleigh out of the equation, you've not had to do this with any other towns in Wake County, this type of financing or anything like this? Are we the first ones?
No, we've done this with other bond issuances for Wake County Housing Authority in Holly Springs and in Apex.
Holly Springs and Apex, okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us.
Of course.
And I think I'm going to go back to our presenter here to see if there's any other guidance or any other issues. We don't have a motion on the floor. We're still trying to do a little basic background information during the presentation. So our town manager or our town attorney, any input, any ideas you have to help us understand and make a good decision, we're all ears.
There's no additional information to be provided unless council has any specific questions from staff or the developer. A reminder, the action before you this evening is approval of the resolution so that the housing authority can proceed with the bonds needed to be part of the financing package of the project.
I just have a question on the tax exemption. And if there's going to be a request for that, and if that can be taken back or not done. That's my question.
Is it, should we be asking our developer partner
Yes,
to
if we can
join
have
us?
the development team.
Yes, sir. If you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself and join the discussion.
Good evening, Scott Copeland, RST Development. I'm the developer. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Are you going to pursue the tax exemption related to this project?
The North Carolina tax exemption?
The voluntary
Yes.
tax exemption.
It's statutory, yes.
It's voluntary as well.
I understand that.
I want the public, I want everyone to understand that it's not mandatory, it's not required. It is voluntary, and that it is a choice that you are taking it. That's all.
Okay, may I? May I respond?
Yeah.
Okay, in response to that, in addition to that, the relationship to the activities and the nonprofit ownership of this project is what's allows for those tax credits. And I think it's important to kind of go out with both sides. And if I may respond, there was never a commitment into how this project was going to be financed. Never. So we can go back and look at the records wherever you want, but never was there a time where I said that this was going to definitively be market rate versus affordable. It was never in the SUP. So I resent that there's a change that y'all keep referring to without acknowledging that just wasn't the case. And staff, I think, can attest to that. There was never ever a commitment to how this was going to be financed. As a matter of fact, when this was approved, that's exactly why we didn't commit to it, because we didn't know how it was going to be financed. So there was never a change in we weren't trying to pull anything over on anybody. This was an opportunity to provide the community with 170 affordable housing units, and it allowed us an opportunity to finance the project and move it forward. Further, we talk about the taxes and the negative impact that this project has on the community without any recognition of the other homes that are being built in that community. We have single-family homes, we have townhouses that are generating tax revenue. And you guys keep comparing everything to my project across the street called the Tarrant, and there are some misstatements. And I understand that y'all are taking a moment in time for the rent. But we're in a lease up. We just came off of a 3 weeks of snow, the rent is not, this is a picture of time, and you're not recognizing that the Bennett project has a rent cap forever. It can never go higher. That's not the case at Tarrant. So if you look at it right now and say the rents are the same, why would I do that? Because you're looking at it at this moment in time during the lease up of that project, and it's not a continuum of what that project's going to do. But if we are talking about the Tarrant, then perhaps it's important to recognize the 800 homes that are in that project that I also developed, didn't build, but developed, that are generating $5 million worth of taxes. So I'm good with the conversation, but I feel like it has to be balanced. You wanted retail, we gave you retail. We took.
I'm just saying, don't look at me because I wanted more retail.
I understand that,
So,
but
I didn't get what I
okay, then I
wanted.
won't look at you. You guys wanted a non-residential use and retail. We rezoned 8 acres at the 401 assemblage site. That's going to become retail. In this instance, we've also voluntarily taken out 100 units that have been approved by this body. You guys approved this site plan. So I'm not doing anything. I'm being penalized for literally following the rules. Literally. I have nothing to do with HUD. I have nothing to do with who sets the rents. Zero. I voluntarily am coming back to this board and saying, even though you approved this for 271 apartments, I'm taking 100 out to provide a retail component. As you saw in my memo, I hope you all saw that. I think there has to be a consideration of both sides of this. I understand that this is a complicated or confusing issue for y'all because you don't see it all the time. But I'm just following the rules that are given to me. I didn't write them. I didn't. I just followed them. The state offered an incentive to build this affordable housing. And with all due respect, when y'all get into building affordable housing in your task force, you'll see how hard it is. You'll see that you need these incentives to do it. That's why the state did it. It doesn't just happen. This is really, really complicated, hard stuff, as attested to by the complications of these bonds. Just that alone is complicated. And so we're following every single rule. Are we taking advantage of opportunities that are available to us in order to pursue this and move forward with it? We are. We are. And one of them happens to be a tax abatement if you provide this type of affordability in the structure that we are.
Okay, let's start back with Mr. Vance. So let's go around. This is a good dialogue. Mr. Vance, you were on you were the co-chair of the Affordable Housing Task Force, and you were the one that noticed suddenly this was getting a different type of funding. And you know, of course, you said all along, Mr. Copeland, I thought you said all along your intention or your goal was to make this affordable housing. We never heard that word in any of the planning we did.
I never said, when we got this approved, this SUP, I never said that this was affordable, but I never said it was market. I had no idea what it was going to be. These were complicated times, and you called me out for my smirk, I'm going to call you out for yours.
Well, let me tell. I'll say it's interesting. You said that there was no mention of affordability. I believe we had to force affordability in that special use permit. So
I understand that, and so I gave you that.
Let me finish my statement. So it is obviously implied that it's market rate. If we've got a
that's just not. That may be your implication, but that's not true.
Okay.
There was never, Mr. Mayor. This is important. There was never ever in any document that we have agreed to, that we got approved for, that said I had to finance this one way or another. And if you can, because you think—
It's not related to financing, and again—
Of course it is, because I'm financing it with low-income housing tax credits, which make it affordable. And what you're saying is, by denying this resolution, you're saying you don't want affordable housing there. You can spin it however you want. I am following the letter and the spirit of the law.
So the spirit,
we're going to keep having that.
The spirit of the law.
Hang on.
Let me. Okay. The spirit of the law with the HUD definitions and taking the opportunity that is presented, that is legal and is whatever. The AMI in this county has escalated to such a point that you are going to build affordable housing by definition that is cost burdening people. And yes, there is a period of time over which there may be a benefit to us. But in the short term, by taking the tax exemption, you are burdening the taxpayers of this town because it is a voluntary tax exemption. We are not against affordable housing. We're not against LIHTC. We've approved the LIHTC project. We contributed $750,000 to that LIHTC project.
So then why is that deal better than mine?
Okay.
Why does that
okay.
deal?
Excuse me. We're going to interrupt the dialogue a little bit here to make this is an extremely important issue, and it's also extremely important that every council member gets to have their time asking questions. We're going to take turns. We're going to ask a question with one follow-up, and we'll keep going around. There's not a motion on the floor. We're still in our educational phase here, but we will not have a debate. We will have everybody take a turn. Mr. Vance.
Well, yes, Mr. Mayor, you asked a question about, I'm thinking, if I summarized, I heard you correctly, were we aware as the Affordable Housing Task Force that this would be a particular affordable housing project? And the answer to that is no. And I would just say, my initial impression of this was that it was not going to be affordable housing because we did debate about a percentage of the dwellings being affordable and try to work that out. I remember hammering it out during that period, and I know that some of the citizens have concerns, adjacent property owners. Why? Because they were under the impression of one thing, and now seeing another thing coming before us now, which is something which goes to public notice and knowledge and understanding, something that will come out in the initial process when we go through the public outreach piece. And I can understand the frustrations that we have here because we're trying to find the best fit, but we still at a stalemate. I know that we also received a legal opinion from our attorney relative to what's going on now. So we know the consequences of of our decisions here. And with that being said, I'm thinking that possibly a little bit more dialogue with the public to let them know what's going on, to make it clear that to allow to just that conversation to happen. That's my concern about the public piece and the public being involved, and all of a sudden this is before folks who are thinking one way and going another way, and that if we are able to think this through a little while longer, knowing the consequences, I think that we'll be able to hopefully come to a resolution on that.
Okay, so you don't have a question for me at this moment. Let's jump back to this end and work our way back around for a round of questions. This is extremely important. We're trying to get educated, trying to respect our citizens and your neighboring landowners to work out for the benefit of everybody. It's just still confusing that we never somehow associated this with a project that was going to be tax exempt. Is that an important factor to us? Mm-hmm. Yes. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our citizens to use their money wisely. And while certainly there's at least 8 other projects in town that do take advantage of the federal tax credit and perhaps some Wake County funding and other avenues, and that's all good. But each one of those, I believe, when they came along before my time, we knew what the cost and the benefits were going through. We knew, and half of the subsidized housing we have is also income restricted. And so I'm just guessing that councils before me said, yes, it will be worth it to help Aunt Sadie or my Uncle Bill over here to have a place to live, even if it means paying out of our tax fund or even raising our taxes. The benefit is worth the cost. I don't think any of us ever understood the benefit of this affordable housing versus the cost and the tax exemption. That was never part of the dialogue that we did. So that's just my comment. Back to Mr. Matthews. You have a question?
Well,
comment?
Again, another comment. All of us are sitting up here when we approved that, and I remember quite well. We talked about maybe some of them being affordable. Elevators were brought into the equation, if my memory holds me correct, and you guys agreed to that. But never was a conversation of, we're not going to pay you any revenue for the cost of services brought up in that conversation. This is brand new. And we can argue everything else till the sun comes up in the morning, but that was not part of that vote. It was never discussed. Because I'll be honest with you, if the taxpayers got to eat this and the fire people got to show up, the police and everybody else, I would never have supported that project. This is brand new. It was not discussed because I was here, and I think everybody else can bear that out. And that is still my concern, is the taxpayers got to pay for this.
Mr. Singleton, comments, questions?
Yes, you talked about the fixed rate that you would charge monthly, but HUD allows those income limits to be adjusted, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so 1,600 is not, I'm just using it because it's even number. That can be adjusted based off limits. I'm sitting here reading information. What is the cap for 2026? Which won't come out until May the 1st, according to this. So they can be adjusted, but it doesn't have to be adjusted, but it could be adjusted. You're allowed to go increase it so much. Up and down, oh
Yes.
yeah, and some of it can be capped.
And it's
Yeah.
controlled by the rules that the federal government makes.
Yeah,
It's-
and they're estimating 5% of them will be capped this year, but in the previous 2 years, the average cap, a percentage cap was 27%, so it's dropped drastically how much you're gonna cap. But anyway, I just wanted to confirm that it can be adjusted.
Yes.
But it's based off the standards they put out.
Yes.
And the economic indicators they use.
And we can't do anything that doesn't comply with the rules
Right.
that are in place.
Yes.
That, we're constrained by the rules that have been set up and the statutes that are at play.
Yes.
We can't go out and make up our own numbers. And I would also like to point out that, and I hear the discussion and understand the potential effects on neighboring property owners, but it seems to me that's somewhat internally inconsistent. If it doesn't rise to the level of what you consider to be affordable housing, well, then it can't be having that impact, that negative impact on the neighboring property owners. I mean, it has to be one way or the other. And I think that, again, to echo what Mr. Copeland said, looking at one moment in time is a bit short-sighted because this is going to be controlled by those statutes and rules moving forward. And I think you'll find that the Tarrant development across the street, which is not constrained, will outstrip rent-wise these apartments. And the entire county struggles with affordable housing. It is a very difficult project. I've been in many an approval process where the affordable housing is one of the more important components. The entire county needs affordable housing. But many times when I find myself in this situation, I also see the communities pushing back against it. As an example, the Buc-ee's development that was planned for I-40 in a county where the county says that they want salaries that have a livable wage. They were being offered a development that had livable wages. That's part of Buc-ee's. That's what they do. That's part of how they sell themselves to communities. And that community voted against it because I think they just really didn't want what they were saying they wanted. And I would hate for Garner to sort of get that reputation also. I mean, I grew up in Smithfield, and I know that people in Raleigh make more money than people in Smithfield, and I'm surprised Johnston County is in that same group where they're looking at this. But it is constrained moving forward, and I think it's a bit short-sighted to miss that point, that this is going to be a nice project that does provide a lower moving forward rental rate that helps support your community. And the key to affordable housing is keeping the people who work and keep a community vibrant in the local area. And I think this is an opportunity. And there is a lot of development that went with this development. The money that has been sunk into this development in total will help offset these expenses. I mean, I think you're separating this from the other developments that have been done and the increase in the tax base caused by those homes, the retail that's going to be there, by the Tarrant apartments across the street. It's not an all or nothing. It's that's going to contribute, and this is going to contribute in a different way.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I don't think I caught your name, sir.
I'm Brett Hanna. I'm a partner with Nelson Mullins in Raleigh.
Okay, thank you. Well, while you're up, we'll keep on a round of discussion. Mr. Stallings?
This is a learning experience for me. I have a quick question, since we're talking about the letter of the law. Is there a requirement that it has to be marketed as affordable housing?
I'm not certain about that answer. I mean, I can find it for you, but.
And just in general, is it required that on your website, it has to be listed that this is affordable housing
You
complex?
mean if it is done with low-income housing tax credits?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll advertise it as affordable housing. Yeah, because you have.
Is there a requirement that you have to?
I'm not sure I understand the question. A requirement from whom?
Just in general.
Or the statute.
Yes.
I don't know why we wouldn't market it as an affordable housing project.
I'm asking because the rents are almost identical as the complex across the street.
It will be marketed because you have to qualify to live there, as you know. So you have to, you can't earn over a certain amount. A household has to earn the 60% level, so they have to qualify to live there. So yes, it would be marketed as an affordable housing project.
I want to make clear that I think we're oversimplifying this by saying that it's either one way or another, that if we deny this, then we don't really care about affordable housing. I think I have different concerns than my council members on the board. I don't think what we're talking about is affordable enough. I think that we're in a unique situation being in Garner that is right outside of Raleigh, that we're being lumped into Raleigh's Carey's MSA. And now we're having to look at affordable housing projects by the letter of the law, as you have mentioned, which is, as presented, 60% of $131,000, which is literally Garner's AMI, which if you brought out what the rents would be, it would be market rate for Garner. I just don't see the public benefit in this if we're saying that affordability is literally the same thing as people are already paying in terms of rent in Garner. This is a complex situation. I'm pretty sure it's very unique and complex for all of the members up here, including the staff. I just wanted to make it clear where I stand on affordable housing and my thoughts around this project.
Hey, Mr. Dellinger?
Yeah, I think it is complicated, but there's a common thread between most of the council, and that is the tax exemption. And where you may have a right to do it, it is not voluntary. And I think we have it's been said multiple times, a fiduciary responsibility to ensure the long-term fiscal sustainability of our budget and good stewardship of taxpayer dollars. Also want to echo Mr. Vance's notion that we probably need to spend a little more time having conversations around this project, engaging some of the adjacent property owners and making sure everyone understands what's going on. And maybe we can get some momentum moving forward. Everyone would know that Mr. Matthews and I don't agree on a lot of things. And when we do, we have a problem. So I kind of echo what Mr. Vance has said, and is maybe if we have a little bit more time to get some public input. We're apparently not on a super short time frame. I'm sure it's much longer than you ever wanted or hoped or anticipated by a long shot. But we have also a responsibility to our constituents when they reach out to their elected officials outside of any actual opportunity to participate in the process, to listen to them and hear their concerns. So I again, I'm in favor of maybe a little bit more time to have some more conversations to just clarify certain things and let cooler heads prevail on certain matters if they can, and educate folks on what the actual end product will be and what its value will be and what it will or won't do to the area. So that's kind of where I am. I just need, I think, a little more time.
That's a good observation. And in fact, Mr. Copeland, you referred to 3 supplemental accommodations from your end that, in your opinion, would make this more reasonable or more acceptable to us. The idea of doing some commercial on your other 5 acres, some type of fee in lieu of the funds, and making some of the apartments more affordable. So you have some ideas of how to make this more attractive to the decision makers here that you've laid out. Correct.
And I think we'd be willing to do that as far as taking more time and being able to engage with council.
Yeah, well, thank you for we're not here to get into that tonight. Those are very relevant in a way, but they're not really key points about what we should be doing with the Wake Housing Authority.
Yes.
But it does point to the fact there's more to this than meets the eye. There's more flexibility than meets the eye. Yeah, so it is important to know, as Mr. Dellinger is alluding to, maybe a little more time for a little more knowledge and discussion and understanding will produce a better product. And I've got to tip my hat to the adjacent landowners as well, who have been here, who have felt left out of the process. It's been a year or more since we've had any kind of public hearing related to this thing. This is not a public hearing, but there's a lot of public interest. There's a lot of public interest. And it could be that maybe maybe we need to take time and pay a little more attention. But I'm not here to make that decision. So we don't even have a motion on the floor. I guess technically we've gathered a lot of information. We've had a lot of discussion, but probably we should be making a motion on the floor that we can have some discussion about related to the Housing Authority of Wake requesting the resolution to authorize multifamily housing revenue bonds. That's the issue before us. Is there a motion related to that?
Mayor Gupton, if I may, given the legal opinion that we received from our attorney, I believe a short continuance would be beneficial to give us time to review everything carefully and make the best decision for the town. And when I say short, I'm saying 30 days. Allow us opportunity to review it in more detail, to have those further coordinations so that we can make the best decision for the town.
Okay, so Mr. Vance is recommending we continue this discussion for up to 30 days to gather more information. Is there a second to that?
Second.
And Mr. Dellinger has a second to that. Let's hear some more discussion from council about that motion. We'll start with Mr. Matthews down here. You gentlemen can have your seat while we discuss this motion, if that's okay.
If we're going to collect information or get the public involved, how are you going to do that? How are we going to do that is what I'd like to know. I mean, we can talk about it all we want to, but if the public now is aware of what's changes are out there, and we want to gather their input, what's that process going to be and how do we go about it?
That's a good question. Mr. Vance, you made the motion. Mr. Dellinger,
Yes,
you seconded the motion.
I would say that with the public involvement, in my mind, with the way that this happened, and with the public thinking one thing and seeing another in such a quick fashion, that the opportunity for the public property owners to engage, possibly talk with, communication with the developers, if that proper, just if I'm off base, let me know, to just voice concerns and considerations, so that we will at least have that engagement piece, similar to a public workshop or something, or public conversation, the developer discussions with the property owners to get their side of the situation, to try to get a better understanding, to clarify any concerns that the property or the public may have.
How would we notify them, I guess is my question.
I think to Mr. Van, I think maybe a noticed public meeting in that part of town somewhere where anyone could come, but then there could be other conversations as well. But I think sometimes, like you're saying, it need to be a notice, some type of noticed event so that it's transparent. It doesn't necessarily be a council meeting per se, but just some other type of noticed event.
Mayor and council, if I could suggest something similar to required neighborhood meetings we have from some of our other development decisions could be appropriate, if that's something that council would be willing to ask of the development team for their consideration over the next 30 days.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that input. Mr. Singleton, comments on the motion?
Clarification on the 30 days. 30 days is April 2nd. So we're gonna go to the first meeting in April. We need to have more than 30 days unless we're gonna go to the work session on March 31st or the March 17th date. 30 days is a Thursday.
No, but I think by if we could do a sort of a neighborhood meeting as the town manager suggested within that 30 days, and then, bring it back at the first meeting if it's ready and the conversation has been sufficient and, we've gotten the feedback we want. So I think it keeps us a little bit out of the schedule of having to do it on a council meeting calendar.
Well, I know the attorneys used a stickler for specific dates when we do these things. That's why I brought it up. I was just waiting for her to bring it up, so I was just beating to the punch. I'm assuming if we say the 30-day period is April 2nd through then we would next bring it up at our April 7th meeting. That would be the next meeting. Does that need to be specific?
Right, for clarity to the public and to the interested parties that are present, I would suggest that you continue it to a date certain. So that would be to a meeting on the 7th. Now, you can also suggest a neighborhood meeting or something in the interim to occur.
Okay, just want to clarify that so so everybody knows what we're talking about. We can't,
Okay, so it would be
specific.
Amendment to the motion. Would you accept that amendment?
I accept the amendment.
To a date certain, and that date being April
7th.
April 7th? Is that the next meeting? The first meeting in April, I guess 30 days, whatever. April 7th, yes.
Okay, and in the meantime, there could be neighborhood meetings, there could be other discussion, there could be other questions, there could be some type of written input from neighbors, from the development team, whatever.
Yes, based upon what we've heard from the town manager and how we can proceed with that, I accept the recommendation that's been given by staff for some type of neighborhood meeting in the location to be determined somewhere in in the area of the project, and take it from there. That's what I would say. They can have questions. They can do what is necessary for a neighborhood meeting to have that conversation about the project.
Mr. Stalin, did you have an observations on the motion? Comment on the motion?
No comments.
I'm going to ask our town attorney and chief parliamentarian if you've got any input on the discussion we're having about the possibility of continuing this to a date certain with some other neighborhood or similar type meetings in between. Any comments or observations?
So my suggestion about the neighborhood meeting is to clarify whether that's a requirement, your expectation of the developer to do that before they come back, and then determining who pays the cost of that. Normally, the developer has to pay the cost of the ones required by the UDO. This is an addition to that. And primarily, the costs are, my understanding is renting the facility where it's held and the postage that it takes to notify everyone within an 800-foot radius.
Mr. Mayor, McCullough's Ruatan building is right over there where they have their big barbecues, and it's right in that neighborhood. And it would be convenient for those people who want to come to go there versus coming down to Garner or somewhere else. And the parking's there, and I think they're very reasonable. And but McCullough's Ruatan building right there on 1010 would be a great place to have this thing. So those people want to come, it'll be easy to come to, and if they don't, they don't.
Well, those would be details that would need to be worked out if we vote have extenuation.
I have a question for the attorney before. Is it required if we do a neighborhood public meeting to do the full public notice per the UDO?
No, because this is not a required neighborhood meeting, so you can suggest the parameters that you'd like to see, whether that is just the adjacent property owners or a larger radius of public notification.
And we'd be willing to use the facilities at the Terran for the meeting place. The Terran right across the street, we'd be willing to use those facilities to solve that issue.
So you have a place available, you're saying, for a neighborhood meeting?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I'm just trying to, the cost associated with that the postage and the timing and all that. Is there other ways?
And we'll pay the costs. We'll pay those costs. Not a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
So I guess do you want the full 800-foot 800 is our current standard, right? Yeah, or do you want something less?
That's, I mean.
I mean, we should
probably
already have the
sufficient.
mailing list available
Same mailing.
from the special use permit.
That's fine.
Yeah, thank you. I think the word would get out to those interested, including the property owners, et cetera, with the basic notification kind of stuff. I would also make the comment that during this extended time for review and more education would be a good time to have some dialogue with the developer about the other supplemental accommodations that have been discussed to learn more what could be done. I think you have some good ideas here and will give us time to kind of assimilate some. Oh, yes, that's a good place to start, and they can translate that to us in the right way in the next 30 days or. That and input from the neighbors, I think, is what I'm hearing. Primarily input from the public. There has been confusion. This has been unusual. I don't think we'll be setting a precedent that we will always start over whenever neighbors feel strongly about it. But this has been a genuinely confusing situation to a number of us. It's rather unique. And if we can take another 30 days and get input from our neighbors and let you give us a good explanation of the rationale behind the supplemental accommodation. What else can we do to make this work? Input from the adjoining landowners. What can we do to make this more attractive and more acceptable to them? If we can take a few days and get this figured out, it could be a better project for everyone in the long run.
The one request that we would make is we shorten the time from 15 to 30 to prevent having problems with our bond issuance. From 30 days to 15 days and do a date certain that's closer in time so we don't start running into timeline issues with our bonds.
Mr. Vance made the motion and was not really, he's not really making a motion about an amendment, but that's kind of what he's asking. Would you consider a different period of time? And let me ask my parliamentarian, how do we go about considering an amendment that hasn't been made by a council member?
Well, either a council member would have to take up that amendment or withdraw that for further discussion. So I think what I heard Mr. Hanna say is that they'd like it to be continued for 15 days, but they would be able to do the neighborhood meeting in the interim.
That's correct.
During that 30 days? Oh, yeah.
No, during the 15 days. That's their proposal.
You're requesting 15 days extension to accomplish the same things.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, not to change the process.
Which would be
but
to the meeting on the 17th
I guess my question becomes
of March.
I guess my question becomes the notification and making sure that the public is engaged and enough time to respond.
Well, fortunately, we have the mailing list from the
I'm sorry?
We have the mailing list required from the SUP process.
Yeah, but yet still, I'm thinking about that time.
Yes,
that's roughly 2 weeks for the public to receive. I'm open to discussion on that. Thoughts on that is if that's thought to be enough time. I'm kind of thinking that's not enough time.
Well, here's a suggestion. Let's make it March 31st and we'll discuss it in the work session. We can take a vote in the work session. There's no law or rule saying we can't. And that's 21 days and that'll cover and give it plenty of time. And that cuts off 10 days from the actually it's 2 weeks. It cuts 10 days off. So it'll be from 30 to 20. So why don't we say the March 31st work session and that gives you 21 days, 20 days.
And I think it gives the public and staff and council a little more time as well to have those conversations. And we don't want to throw too much on staff on short notice as well.
Understood.
Well, thank you for looking at the calendar, Mr. Singleton.
Well, we have 5 Tuesdays in March, so just have to work out.
Mr. Singleton, was that an amendment to the amendment to change the continuance to March 31st?
Yes, I'll make an amendment to the amendment that Mr. Vance made.
I accept that.
And if I could just add, we had a few other items scheduled for your work session on the 31st. So if moving this to the 31st, we may need to move a few things around. And I just wanted council to be aware of that before you make a final vote.
Thank you.
A long meeting.
Okay, so there's an amendment to the motion accepted
accept
by
it.
the motion maker that we continue this to March 31st, have the neighborhood meeting in between, have more dialogue, more understanding of the big picture, and help us all move ahead. And while this will allow some input for the neighboring landowners as well at the neighborhood meeting, and they're free to contact staff between now and then too to express issues, questions, concerns. So I think it's important. This is a very important project, not just 171 units, but everything related to it, the potential commercial. It's a big deal in a critical part of town, and it's critical to the surrounding landowners of 80-plus acres, what goes in, how it looks, how it feels, how does it fit into the bigger plan, how does it fit in the Raleigh utility plan, water and sewer. There's a lot of loose ends here, and I can't help but think that 3 weeks will give us a big head start to start off in a better direction if we do this. So the motion's been made, it's been amended, it's been discussed. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Hannah. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Town Attorney, would you mind restating the motion for us to make sure we understand exactly what we're saying?
I believe it's to continue this item to the work session on March 31st, 2026, which incorporates the having of a neighborhood meeting in the interim time.
Okay. Does that accurately reflect?
Yes, sir, it does.
I would add just the word noticed, neighborhood meeting.
Right, a neighborhood meeting with notice provided to the same 800-foot radius that was used for the special use permit.
Okay, very good. Sounds like progress to me. So the motion's been made, seconded, and discussed. We'll close the discussion at this point, and let's take a voice vote like we did before, and the person who made the motion signify aye to be in favor of that motion or nay if opposed. Mr. Vance?
Aye.
Mr. Dellinger?
Aye.
Mr. Stalin?
Aye.
Mr. Singleton?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. We will continue this item until March 31st with the conditions that were outlined. Thanks for everybody's comments and input on this. Very important. It helps us move ahead. Case closed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hannah. Thank you. And that brings us down to approximately 2 minutes until 8 o'clock and a few minutes left. Is the feeling of council to take a short break and resume with attention to these items or push on through?
Push on.
Say, push on through.
We got that much left.
All right.
Push on through.
Let's go.
Push on through. Oh, wow, right. Okay.
Mr. Nance is saying push on through, but fast.
Committee reports. Committee report. Let's start with committee reports. Let's start with Mr. Matthews.
Committee will begin work in March to begin the recruitment process for vacant board and commission seats. So we're excited to get that process started in March and fill out vacancies. And I had someone actually at the polls today say, "How do I get involved in Garner?" And so we've had some pretty preliminary conversations before about finding ways to better place folks who don't fit on any of our commissions because we have so many qualified folks. So we want to maybe try to do some more outreach to other nonprofits and organizations that could use volunteers and start directing people to all the great organizations we have in Garner. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Vance.
No committee
No
report.
committee report. Manager reports.
Yes, just a few reminders, Mayor and Council. First, a reminder, our Civic Academy, we are taking applications for the reboot of our Civic Academy. This program will start next month. It's an 8-week class. It gives sort of an extensive behind-the-scenes look at town government and operations. Information and the application are available on the town's website for those residents that are interested, and they have everyone needs to apply by March 11th. Our special spring cleanup is for unprepared trash and yard waste starts March 16th. Residents can place unprepared yard waste and some bulky waste items curbside to pick up by Monday morning for their assigned special collection week. And this is always a very popular service that we provide in the springtime. More information about the service and the special assigned collection week is available on our website as well. And finally, just a reminder that the Showcase of Talent We will be hosting that again at GPAC this Saturday with free shows at 3 and 7 p.m. So encourage all to come out and see all the talent we have here in the town of Garner. Those are all the reports I have for this evening.
Okay, attorney reports.
No report this evening.
Okay, let's start with council reports, and let's start with Mr. Vance this time, other than committee reports, council reports.
I would just say that they had a great event last week at Essentials of Municipal Government. It was a great refresher for myself at the UNC School of Government at Chapel Hill. It was a great opportunity to just reflect and see other municipalities and how they operate, and to really learn the staff better, and do a great exercise in, I say, in bonding and understanding and working together with the staff. So it was a really good event. It's been 7 years, I think, It's been a long time since I've been, and it was just a good refresher.
Good. Mr. Dellinger.
Yeah, I would just direct council and everyone to, there was an article in News and Observer today talking about housing affordability, just to speak to how important what we're doing is. And it says Wake County carries the largest volume of housing stress in the Triangle, with 28,000 eviction filings and 76,000 cost-burdened renters. That is the epicenter of the region's affordability crisis. And then it goes on to say that in Wake County, a construction worker would need to earn close to $33 an hour or $70,000 a year to afford their housing. So there is still a problem. There continues to be a problem, and we can't let what are the rules that result in loopholes get in the way of us doing the work we know we need to do to provide, at some level, some affordable housing in Garner. So I appreciate the council's work over the years and staff's work, and we'll keep fighting.
It won't be solved tonight, will it? But it's a step in the right direction. Mr. Stallings.
So I want to echo what Councilman Vance has said. Attending Essentials for Municipal Government for the first time. It was a great event, learned a lot. It was great going through all of the scenarios and exercises they had. And I think one great thing that I realized going through all of those sessions were a lot of things that they talk about what creates a high functioning local government is things that we already implement here as a town. So it was great just seeing that, Garner is pretty much the gold standard in a lot of the things and how we operate. But it was just great going through the program and just interfacing with the staff and with everybody else. It was just overall a good experience.
Did you hear him say the gold standard? Garner is the gold standard for high-functioning governments. And he's telling the truth. I was there, too. I went to that event, that mandatory training for me 2 years ago. It was mandatory for you, but it was not mandatory for the town manager, the town attorney, the 2 assistant town managers, the mayor, and the other 2 council members in addition to yourself who went along. So it was there to build the team, to build our communication, mission accomplished. And I'll say it again, and you said these people should come to Garner and see how it's done. You guys are the model. We are the model for have a high functioning government. And it's because we take the time to listen, to get educated, and to listen to each other. Thank you very much for your attendance there. By the way, he asked the best questions of the whole 2 days. We were proud of it.
You don't know nothing. Of course he asked a good question.
Mr. Singleton.
Just don't ask him questions about policy. All right, 2 items, and based off, I've been asking about one of these for some time, but also off this project. Apparently, there's nothing. I'm just asking. I'll see our planning director, assistant director there. Is it possible to add a line on an SUP application stating that the project that they are projecting to build will be market rate, and/or will it have any housing affordability components in that project? Can we ask that question? They can't say it never came up from staff. Even though staff will talk to it, if it's on the application, then that opens the door. Okay, you had to check yes or no.
I have to check on that. And you're asking, can we add that line to the application when they're submitting for an SUP?
Right, so at the very beginning, they can't say they never heard anybody say anything.
Okay.
Even though you probably mentioned it in conversation, it's that way they have to check a box. If there'll be any housing affordability components to the project. That say it has to be the whole project, is will there be any components of it?
So if I may, because you can get SUPs for a number of different projects, I would suggest that if this is the concern with things that are for the residential ones that are over a certain number of units, that perhaps not asking it on the application, but you can certainly ask questions during the hearing process as they relate to those 8 factors that you are to consider. And one is the impact on adjacent property values.
Okay, so we can't do anything on application just for residential projects, that's that one line.
Yeah, I would suggest that because we have one application for all SUP projects, that question might not be relevant to every use that comes before an SUP.
Okay.
Of course, I guess they could answer that not applicable in some situations.
Okay. I just don't want to come in here and say, well, we never heard anything about it. Because some of them will say that, even though staff probably talked to them about it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Mr. Singleton that somewhere along the line, we have to ask a question we never asked before, and that is, do you intend to pay your property tax, or are you going to look for an exemption to your property tax? And whether we have to ask them that in other venues or on the application, but we can't take for granted anymore that any given project, and it may be residential or it may be commercial, if it's owned by a nonprofit, they have the potential to ask for a property tax exemption. So we'll be addressing this in many ways, many times over the coming weeks, but this is just the way it is today. This is a change in the world. Things we used to take for granted, that you'll pay your property tax, we can't take that for granted anymore. Mr. Matthews, excuse me.
Second question was, and we talked about cost of services, and we touched on it at the retreat. And again, this project shows the need for simple cost of service projection estimation for mainly public safety, police and fire, public works, and parks and rec, estimated costs. We know that's just an estimation, but we were told it's going to cost approximately between $200,000 and $400,000. Well, that's kind of a big wide gap. Can we get something more specific, and can we not see those numbers based off a unit, based off previous stats? And these are for all new projects. We know we can't get back into them on existing projects. Then I'm going back to the night-down model.
Yes.
So we can see some estimate. I mean, we've always said if you're adding 2.5 people in a neighborhood and it's 1,000, that's 2,500 people, you're supposed to add approximately this many police officers and this many firemen and first responders. So that's just a start. But anyway, it'll be nice to have those numbers available, because it came up here, but it says it's between 200 and 400. Well, we need to get a little more specific than between 200 and 400. And that's estimation, but we need to, that would be very helpful.
Yes, we heard council's discussion and interest in wanting to do a more simplified version to at least give a range of what estimated core services would cost. And so that's something we are working on. I'd hope to have it in the next 30 to 45 days for council.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Matthews.
Just want to second the School of Government. It was been a long time since I'd been up there, and I still learned a lot. I learned a new word called hypothetical. There was one town that was having issues, and they were doing a lot of hypotheticals, asking a lot of new questions, and so that's the new.
What town was that, Mr. Matthews?
A nearby community, we'll say. They had a lot of hypothetical questions, and it was cracking me and Kelvin up quite big time. So, but it was a very good and well attended. We were well represented between staff, and Garner was the golden child. I know you stepped up. We're already doing this. Everything. We're already doing this. You need to communicate. We're already doing this. About everything they come up with, and Mr. Stoddard's right. We're pretty much already doing it, and everybody's coming after. Well, how did y'all do that? How'd you do this? So we were quite popular. I'd say Garner was at that meeting, and well prepared for it. Congratulations on those that jumped in the cold water on Saturday. I know the town manager and 2 assistants, and one certain young council member showed up out there and jumped in the water, and a lot of money was raised and well attended. And so I appreciate the staff stepping up to the plate, and fire department, the police department too. They were out there, and Parks and Recs was out there, so we were well represented. And the final thing, this happened last year, and I mentioned this to Assistant Manager Poole. North Garner Middle School, they had contacted us about, they needed flags for their flag poles. The North Carolina flag and American flag was just shot to pieces. And he and I had talked about this, and I told him, I said, well, if we can get the flags, we'll get the Veterans Committee to go out there and take the old ones down and properly dispose of them like you're supposed to do. We'll turn them over to the American Legion and the VFW, and we'll put the new ones up. Well, they had a little bit of issue about us doing it, so Mr. Poole agreed. So what if we give you all the flags and let you guys put it up? And I think, if I remember correctly, that's what they wound up doing. And we've got a similar situation at South Garner High School. I see it all the time because the church I'm a member of, we meet out there on Sundays. We rent the school out there for church service. The North Carolina flag was in such tatters, I don't know whatever happened to it. And the American flag, it looked like it was at Fort McHenry after the battle. It's torn to shreds. Went by today and looked at it and got a picture of it. And what I'd like to know, if I think the board agree with us on this, we are a patriotic community, very supportive of our military, and we got the signs up to prove it. And we've got our memorial out there, and the flags look good, and they are at half-mast, like the ones out in front of the town here at half-mast. The flag out at school won't even at half-mast. So, but if way we can contact that school and get 2 new flags put up, because it does represent Garner, and being a veteran, and we make the pledge in here, and and you got 2 old vets up here, know what it's all about, and especially with the war going on right now, and young men and women on the line, and you sign up knowing you could be in harm's way, and that's just the way it is. But out of respect and courtesy for all this, if there's a way we can get a North Carolina and a American flag to go out there, contact them, and our group would be glad to put it up and take that one down, but I'll let you guys figure out the logistics if we could do that.
Certainly, we can follow up with them and see if they're interested in receiving some flags from the town.
Thank you, ma'am. And that's all I got. God bless America.
And yes, sir.
Yeah, I would just support Mr. Matthews and what he said, but I wanted to piggyback on what Mr. Singleton was talking about with regards to analysis and stuff. And when I was looking at 2 things sort of came to mind when I was reading the consent agenda. One was the engineering bids and things that were in there, and the analysis by Kimley Horn on their engineers. And it gives you sort of the in-house work estimate of what this project should cost. And I think also then looking at the level of transparency that LMG comes to us with on their analysis and their costs, I think it'd be nice if we could evolve into our planning process. Either our applicant provides that level or some level of analysis on what their rents are going to be or what their costs are going to be. Not that it's what we're going to base our decision on, but it helps us inform the fiscal profile of a project. And if they don't want to do it, that we have some mechanism internally to do some of that sort of rough shape, just roughly, given the rough minimum, maximum sort of thing. And that's kind of what came out of that bid process was what we think. The bids came in, it was off here, accurate here, but pretty spot on to kind of what the average is. So I think looking for us to do some of that analysis in-house as part of that revenue part, so we have that bigger picture and we aren't relying on statements that are said by the time they get up here that, oh, we don't know how much we're going to charge and we don't know. And Councilman Stallings is all about return on investment. We should have insights onto some of that from our perspective to know, is this project feasible or not? They say, oh, we can't do this project unless you do X. And it's like, well, our in-house number said you can, or at least work on some compromise and trade-offs, because I think that we all know we don't get everything we want with every project, but it's nice to know where those sort of trade-offs can be made. So it's not an immediate work order or anything, but it's kind of an evolution of the quality of information that's coming to council. And last comment on that, I thought that the information provided in this agenda packet with the questions and the answers was extremely thorough and transparent and clear. And it was very helpful to have that right in front of me as I was preparing for the meeting and in the meeting. So I just commend staff on the clear extra effort that went into preparing the agenda, particularly on a very complicated issue. So that's all.
Thank you. And my hat's off to all of the council members, all the staff, everyone who participated in two challenging projects today. The complicated one and then the confusing one. Thanks for paying attention. If there's no further business, I will accept a motion to adjourn. One more thing.
One last thing. I apologize to Mr. Stalling for saying he didn't know anything and giving him a fist bump because he knows plenty. He's a smart guy. I don't want to be too informal, but I respect it. I respect you, Mr. Stalling.
Totally fine.
All right, I'm done.
So move.
Second.
All in favor of adjourn signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you for your polite.